Good evening. This is Rob Bell, and this is Getting the Record Straight. It is Thursday evening, and this is our Truth to Power segment. So we're going to get into some things that are happening around the world and in this country. And of course, the main thing that is happening, of course, is the coronavirus. I hope you're out there staying safe, doing what you have to do to remain healthy, not trying to transmit things to other people. So hang in there. But this is without a doubt the most chaotic time I've ever had to deal with in my life in terms of the state of affairs of this country and this city for that matter. It's just really, we don't know whether the inmates have taken over the asylum. Everything you see on television right now is just hard to believe. Um, Not going to go over a lot of the stuff that is already been reported about the coronavirus. There's so much coming out. In fact, some news outlets have it on 24/7. I would like to say, though, that one of the interesting things that's going on that I've heard about, some of the sources that I look at on TV, are that you had these strikes across the country. Wildcat strikes. It's my understanding in New York, Amazon workers are striking. Somewhere else, Whole Food workers, nurses, sanitation employees, bus drivers, chicken workers at Purdue. So people are pushing back and rising up and trying to tell employers as well as government officials that they need to step up and they need to do the right thing. And it's just hard to figure out what's going on again. Who's steering the ship here? Because of course Trump. Um, I mean, you see what we've gotten for a person who's so obnoxious and so ignorant. And I think I said a couple of shows again that seems to be an American virtue. That this craziness and stupidity, which is manifest, primarily by the president, but quite frankly, is exhibited by a number of people in leadership positions. And one of the things that I've tried to convey over the past few days doing this video is that this madness and that's what it is, madness that we see is very serious. This virus, this pandemic is laying bare that fact, and that that we have this kind of level of dysfunction around the country. But it does speak to a much deeper, um, much deeper problem, a pandemic, if you will, of morality. And we're led by some very vile people and have been for some time. And I think in a way that country, since its inception, has always been fighting this good or evil, good against evil kind of thing. And between you and me and the walls here, it doesn't look like we're winning, particularly over the last 20, 25 years. And, you know, really is an issue about what's the soul of this country about. Um, as I said, while what I want to bring to light is not only what's happening in this country, but what this country continues to do around the world and internationally, and how that reflects on us, and how that really is a light of, into our soul and what we are about as a nation. And, you know, I cited some examples last time, and I'm going to do a little bit more of that about our history and our history of our malignant history of things we have done to other people. And I really believe, there is such a thing as karma, and things are coming back to bite us. And quite frankly, we just can't seem to stop. And I mentioned that last time. We're doing things. We're actually enacting sanctions against countries while this pandemic is going on. And one of the titles of my videos is, what can be more evil than that? And we're busy trying to deal with it, locally and nationally in terms of this sickness, this virus. Um, but at some point when this ends, we really have to think about, what we have done and what we're doing to other people uh, across the world, and again, what we're doing here. I don't like the fact that in this presidential campaign we haven't talked as much about international affairs, but they are important and they are indicative and will come back to show itself or themselves here in this country. So it's, the fact that we have kids in cages in the United States, the fact that we don't, people right now are trying to figure out how to pay for medical care and how to pay for treatment for this virus. So many people have lost their jobs are not going to be able to get health. Will be losing their health care also. So it's not unusual. It's not crazy that that the way we treat our own citizens here, that we're also treating people poorly and criminally overseas. Um, Last time, I was giving you some examples of what this country has done for 224 out of 241 years we've been at war. The vast majority, I would say probably 90% of that is certainly not in defense of the country. You might be talking 8 years, 12 at the most, including World War II. Some of the dictators we've supported include Mobutu and the Shah of Iran, Duvalier in Haiti. But I wanted to share a couple of incidents that probably people don't even know, and I remember them. A couple of them I remember vividly. And when you mention it, it really seems again hard to believe. But this is what this country is about. You can't say that. I went through the week helping people. From Monday to Saturday, Monday to Saturday. But on Sunday, I shot 3 people and killed them. They weren't doing anything to me, but I thought they might. They just kind of looked funny. Doesn't work like that. You're guilty. And some of the things I was just, researching a few things that they're not, certainly not nothing that's secret, but, there was another 9/11 that people in Chile refer to, 9/11, 1973, when the United States overthrew the government of Salvador Allende and helped install Pinochet as the dictator there. And you may have heard about that before, but what was really sick was that happened in 73, but 3 years later, here in this country, the ambassador from Chile to the United States, who was he was here in exile because he had served under Allende, and when Pinochet took over, he stayed in the United States not in hiding, but he was actually teaching here, but he was in exile, and his name was Orlando Letelier, and he was killed in Washington, D.C. on the streets in a car bomb exploded, killed, I believe, another American who worked with him at the university here, because I'm not sure which college he taught. I think it was Washington University in D.C. But he was killed in a car bomb. Something that is just so unbelievable. Certainly, we would never have stood for an American citizen abroad being killed in the Capitol and murdered like that. And then come to find out the CIA knew something about it. It said that they probably could have prevented it. But this is what we have facilitated, if you will, because obviously if Allende had never been overthrown, that would not have happened. I remember this in 1980, four Catholic missionaries, women, were murdered in El Salvador, raped and murdered. Terrible, vicious murder by the government forces in El Salvador. The government forces, of course, were supported by the United States, and they know who did it. I think someone went to jail for it, but this is the kind of thing our government was behind. I bring up these things because they happen in Central America, and two of the American uh, poli- uh, um, um, executives, if you will, they weren't politicians, but they were part of the administration at that time, both Reagan and the Bush administration, and that's John Negroponte and Elliot Abrams, who you probably just heard about. He's the person who is now overseeing the Venezuela situation. Where we're trying to enact regime change on them. These people, in any other situation, any other country, would have been brought before the International Criminal Court because Negroponte was overseeing activities down there, and Elliot Abrams was also during his tenure. Both of these guys are from the late 70s and early 80s. And lastly, um, I remember this because I actually saw it when it happened. A guy named Bill, this happened in 1979. Bill Stewart was an ABC reporter, got stopped at a checkpoint in Nicaragua, and he was shot right on national television by government forces in Nicaragua. And anybody who knows anything about the situation in Central America in the late 70s and through the 80s, when socialist, populist forces, the population down there was rising up against the dictatorships. And the United States supported those dictatorships many times, almost always covertly, and was passing money illegally. You heard about Iran Contra and that situation. And to such a point where the Congress actually passed a couple of laws that prevented funding for these dictators and their military. Many of the military leaders trained here in the United States. Saying all that to say that, the ugly head of and leadership, American leadership that helped facilitate and help support these dictators, these murderers in Central America, these American leaders and politicians have resurfaced and are here now and are, on television. Elliot Abrams was grilled on TV when he was put in charge of activities down there in Venezuela. And we haven't learned our lesson, and we are going to have to deal with it. And it is an example of just how low as a country we have become. And it doesn't surprise me that our efforts to deal with this virus and deal with our own people and save our own people, that we're having such a problem with that, and it's so chaotic. On that note, gotta go. This has been Getting the Record Straight. Be safe.